Welcome, Leo, to your in-depth monthly forecast for March 2026. To begin with, I'm going to give you the big themes of the month, including a historical connection between the Sun in Aries, Saturn and Neptune in the last 10 days. The first time in the case for Saturn for 29 and a half years, but Neptune for 150 years. Big stuff. But we've also got two lunations this month, which your rule of the sun is right at the heart of. The total lunar eclipse in Virgo of the 3rd, and the new moon in the sign of Pisces on the 19th. And they're both going to be emphasizing the ins and outs around your financial situation. But on the screen is your event chart at the start of the month. And first of all, I'm going to unpack that for you because that's going to provide a backdrop for the whole of March. But I go through all the influences frame by frame to give you a clear picture of what you can expect in terms of relationships, money, energy, and your career. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. A warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to the channel, please do so now. So the big theme is the fact that Jupiter goes direct on the 11th, Mercury on the 20th, Mars switches from Aquarius on the 2nd into Pisces. But on the screen, let's just look at that gathering of energy in Pisces. So for you, the eighth house, particularly with Venus there and the Sun, can be very positive if you're wanting to do something very entrepreneurial, or you're wanting to squeeze more from your resources in a shrewd and canny way. But the eighth house does have a more psychological dimension. It can be where we need to evolve. And being a fixed sign, it can be more challenging for fixed signs to change our ways of doing things. I'm a fixed sign too. But what you are going to have is the energy of Mars moving into that sector on the 2nd, but that can shake things up because the eighth house can also be about very intense connections and attractions, even all the way to obsessions. So that's something that's intriguing. But just at the start of the month, Mars in your sector of relating, along with the dynamic transformational Pluto, is clashing badly with Uranus. Now, Uranus is in a very visible part of your chart, and apart from the 4 months last year in Gemini, has been since March 2019. But when Uranus first darted into Uranus for its initial visit of around 4.5 months in May 2018, it clashed with Mars. And we've seen ever since then, because Uranus is in its full in Taurus, a lot of volatility around the cost of living as just one strand. But I think for you, Uranus in that part of your chart has encouraged you to be a bit more edgy around your public persona. Maybe you started to do something that pushed yourself out of your comfort zone, something that was more creative. It may be that you changed your job. Maybe you started your own enterprise because you wanted to be more of a free spirit. So that's the Uranus in the 10th house energy. And if you are someone with very innovative ideas, you really may have been pouring your energy into those over these last 7 years. But as we begin this month, Mars clashes with Uranus just like it did all those years ago through the summer of 2018. If you encounter some big politics then, you could encounter some big politics this month too. And it's all about if you feel that someone is not really appreciating what you're giving in a relationship, and it may be a professional one, and you feel that in some ways they're trying to leverage you, which feels controlling. And that may be something you're going to push back on in a big way, because an event chart at the start of the month is like a natal chart. So this is the birth chart of March. Now, ironically, Uranus is forging a very strong link with Venus. And Venus is in the part of your chart to do with joint finances. If there's someone you are aligning well with, and you do have an idea that you could work on together, or someone wants to support what you want to do as an individual, something can flourish. But the erratic energies of Uranus with Mars suggest any tie that feels oppressive. It may be you work somewhere where there's a line manager that is not very encouraging. Maybe Mars is helping you to be more assertive about your boundaries, even around who does and contributes what around the domestic chores at home. But Mars moving into that eighth house can also carry a very passionate sexual energy because that's going to have an echo of his rulership of Scorpio. And because the sun is very close to the North Node, something could be drawing you in a particular direction. It may be around your finances, but it may be about something you want to evolve in your deep psychology, because the eighth house can be ends and beginnings. So it can be what becomes deconstructed, but then reconstructed afterwards. So some kind of rebirth is possible this month, maybe around your work, maybe around your inner work. If you're really into personal development, the sign of Pisces can be very much about healing, of course. But then that takes us to the third, and we have that total lunar eclipse. This is another in the series between the sign of Virgo and Pisces. But I should just mention as we start this month, the moon is in your sign, and that points towards you wanting to be a bit more assertive, but it is in an opposition with Pluto. So if you push back on anyone this month, they're probably going to resist. But that eighth house energy suggests that within that process, something must evolve. It's either going to get deeper and more committed, or perhaps you're going to start the process of actually backing out of something that doesn't nurture you in the way you want. But if you're lucky enough to encounter someone or you're with someone where there is a huge amount of physical attraction, that can be amplified massively by Mars moving into Pisces. So the total lunar eclipse in a more pragmatic way may be just making sure that if you're doing something around your long-term finances, it doesn't stretch you too much with your everyday budget. That's the simple form of it. But I think the second eighth house energies of a total lunar eclipse could be about what you're attached to. Are you or do you have particular patterns that you find hard to let go of because they do provide a level of security and familiarity? And that may be why that evolutionary energy of the eighth house is going to push rather than you embracing it. That is possible. Plutonic energy, very eighth house, along with Mars, can see us resist those changes. It's only when it's all happened we can look back and think, I should have really let go earlier. What was the point of holding on to that? And of course, recently you have had this energy developing in your ninth house, which you did have last year, which was just reminding you about what you needed to learn. So if you have signed up for a course last year, if you've pushed yourself in terms of your professional qualifications, if you are thinking about changing something in your life, you need to have the knowledge to back up that change. And Neptune, of course, can distort. But I think the issue is that on the 6th, Venus is going to move into this ninth house. So that brings a lighter, more vibrant energy for a desire for a little bit more freedom. So this eighth house energy is more out than in. Venus can see you wanting to create some kind of diversion. But as the sun moves forwards in the early parts of this month, it does link very productively with Jupiter. Now, Sun Jupiter trine is one of the luckiest in astrology, but for you, they both happen in water signs and psychological sectors. So the growth is more about your personal understanding. It may be financial because the eighth house can be about long-term investments, but maybe as I think the psychological dimension would be strongest. But that Venus moving out to ninth house suggests you may want to do something more playful, more spontaneous. But Saturn and Neptune, particularly around the ninth, are going to remind you, particularly if you're considering leaving a relationship, that there will be potential consequences, unfortunately. Now, Jupiter goes direct on the 11th, and look forward to his arrival in your sign on the 30th of June for the first time in the 11 years, which is fantastic news because when Jupiter moved into Cancer last year, it was afflicted by Saturn. Jupiter moves into your sign and we'd be blessed or will be blessing the total solar eclipse in Leo on the 12th of August, and Mercury will be in residence at the same time too. We've got a lot to look forward to in the back end of this year. But just going back to this ninth house energy, because obviously the sun's moving there on the 20th, but Jupiter going direct is something to welcome. But I feel that on the 15th, as Mercury and Mars come together in a conjunction in this eighth house, if you do need to have a serious business conversation, you can put across your ideas with conviction, passion, and authority. However, the 19th sees a new moon in Pisces. But if you are looking for a job, this is fantastic. And it may be over the following month. You really do snare something that excites you. Maybe because it gives you that balance between being stimulated and fresh and interesting, Uranus, but also has good rewards, the eighth house, because Uranus forges a fantastic link into that particular new moon. But the 20th Mercury goes direct. So if there have been tangles around getting information, particularly around those joint finances or investment plans, that will create some extra clarity. But the sun moves on that day too into Aries, and we begin the whole new astrological cycle. And for you, because you are a fire sign, that's lovely. It is taking you away from some of that intensity that can come with the eighth house and gives you a taste for freedom. So if you find yourself wanting to break out and do something different, wouldn't be a surprise. But if you're talking about a contract or a relationship matter, which is rather tender, in the last 10 days of this month, just know that that Saturn conjunction, Neptune conjunction to the Sun could be quite challenging. Now, right at the end of the month on the 30th, Venus moves to the top of your chart. If you do have an interview as the month comes to a close, your natural charisma and charm can be magnified by that, which is very, very helpful. Also, we're going to see a great link between Mars as he moves forwards and also Jupiter. So your thrust is going to be very strong, but I don't think it's until Jupiter moves into your sign at the end of June that you're really going to benefit from him so much, because for you, it's the 12th house. He may be naturally exalted in Cancer, but the 12th house is more contemplative. It's more about the spiritual dimension. Jupiter's rulership of Pisces rather than Jupiter's rulership of Sagittarius, sheer luck. So when Jupiter joins up with you, I think you're going to see things roaring along in a much more dynamic and exciting way for you as the year goes on. To understand what Saturn holds for you over the next 2 years, please click on the link on the video on the screen. And also, please join us at my new website. We're constantly making amendments and improvements. You can click on the second screen to join us. If you'd like to review one-to-one, please check out my testimonials below. You can also order your personal forecast, either in natal or draconic format. If you order the natal package, there's 50% off. Please apply Astro 26 at the checkout. If you want draconic, your soul karmic package, there's 50% off. Please apply Draco 26 at the checkout. Both provide searing insights, great value, very accurate, and totally unique to you.